The death of physical media in gaming might be a bit premature. We've been seeing all sorts of articles come out and things happen that kind of shows, or more like paints, a pretty grim picture of physical media in gaming. And I think it's very important for us to discuss exactly what happened and what's going to happen, because this seems to be a hot button topic that's debated all the time. I hear so many different things from both sides. So let's go over it just a bit. The recent news about Microsoft's physical Xbox division being phased out or let go or outsourced or whatever the case is, something's happening to them. Xbox's redesign with the Xbox Series X that was leaked being all digital, adorably, by the way, but the same price as the current Xbox Series X that actually plays physical games, so it's the same price and does the same things. Now, there are some updates to it, but they're just removing the physical component just because. Adorably, I guess, right? Microsoft's push for Game Pass, eliminating the need or want for physical games from Xbox consumers. Best Buy removing physical games from their stores, which I checked my own high-performing Best Buy, by the way, so it's not like it's one of those struggling Best Buys. People buy stuff from there, and that definitely seems to be the case. The only games that were there were Nintendo Switch physical games, and even then they were locked up behind a counter in the front with just little pictures with inside boxes saying, hey, there's this game, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, or whatever the case is. So it's not like they have a huge physical presence even out there on the floor. Sony's delicate yet somewhat manipulative $100 off of a digital PS5, despite the specs of the system being the exact same of the physical PS5. I mean, putting a Blu-ray player slash physical media in the PS5 cost them nearly nothing. I mean, they pretty much invented the tech anyway with Blu-ray, right? So them doing that clearly is trying to push you in the direction of assuming that it's cheaper. Oh, it's so much cheaper, even though you have no ownership of your games at all, and you can't go to different places to buy your games for competitiveness. When it comes down to it, everything goes through Sony. Even the rise of Nintendo Switch digital sales on the eShop all point to physical media just being phased out. And I think that while yes, there are definitely all of these things that are happening and there's truth to that, I don't think it's quite happening just yet. But before we get into that, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my Nintendo Switch RPG videos, live streams, and more first. Now, let's talk about this because there was an article that came out from Circana, and they talked about the US, the biggest gaming market, right? The biggest gaming market in the world is right here in the US, and half of all physical spending, so this is not digital at all, but half of all physical spending was on Nintendo Switch. So half of all the different in the gaming media was on Nintendo Switch. 40% was from PlayStation, over 40. So over 50% from Nintendo, over 40% from PlayStation, and then about 10%, a little bit less than 10% from Microsoft. And these numbers are incredibly telling in terms of what I talked about before with all the things that are happening with Microsoft, what Nintendo's doing as well, and also Sony's delicate dance in between when it comes to what they actually want you guys to do, or they want consumers and the push for all digital. Now, there's many reasons for the different things here, guys. Let's just talk about that for just a bit. Value. When it comes to why the Nintendo Switch accounts for over half of the physical spending in the US. Value. People see Nintendo Switch games when it comes down to having a cartridge format. It's something that's almost a little bit nostalgic for people who grew up in that era, right? Getting a physical cartridge on your NES or your Super NES or your N64, right? When cartridges were a thing, or even with your portable systems, with the Game Boy or GBA, whatever the case is, there's nostalgic and there's value tied into that because Nintendo, one of the oldest video game makers out there, they just have this inherent thing with cartridges and their fan base. So there's definitely part of that. And the value of the games in terms of reselling and all of that is just there with Nintendo historically and with the Nintendo Switch. Also, another thing is that you actually save on space. This is one of the reasons why I think physical is still apparent on the Nintendo Switch, because remember, that cartridge doesn't install to your system memory or to your SD card. It's just on there and it plays from there. Now, some games are hybrids where they need the space on the cartridge, whatever that space may be, plus a download. But a lot of games on the Nintendo Switch you can play straight up off the cartridge with no updates, with nothing, and you can just play. Now, there might be some games where you're missing some improvements or whatever the case is, but some games just come ready to go. Everything's good for the most part, and you don't really need to update at all. So there's also that. You save on the space, and then there's the value for people of just being able to pop in the cartridge and play the game like they used to. And of course, being able to buy, sell, rent, trade, whatever the case is, right? That's all part of the ecosystem with Nintendo, the fans, and why there's value and why people still buy so many physical games on Nintendo platforms. So that right there is a big indicator when it comes to this, that no, physical isn't quite dead at this point. Now, listen, guys, there is no mistaking this. Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony all want you to go digital. They all want you to go digital because it's better for them. It's not necessarily better for you as a consumer. That's simple economics that we can briefly go over, but it's better for them because it cuts out the middleman. They don't have to pay through to go to the store, then the store gets a cut, and then it gets split up. It just directly goes to them when it's all digital. So of course, they're gonna want you to go all digital. But when it comes down to the economy of all of this, you definitely want there to be multiple options where you pick up games so they can't jack up prices or almost never have sales or simply sit there and put their prices up, because there's been so many times where physical Amazon will have a sale for a game, then all of a sudden on PSN you see a sale, or you see a sale on the eShop, or you see sale on Xbox, and vice versa, where there's a sale on digital, then all of a sudden retailers are like, okay, we need to do this. So it keeps things competitive. Relying upon Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony to make sure that they continue to do what they're doing without having that check and balance of physical gaming is absolutely irresponsible. Don't think that they're just going to continue doing the same things. Heck, we don't even see it at this point with Sony's first party games, how they've tried to phase out how many they ship to retailers and the prices of them, because they were disgusted at what happened with the PlayStation 4 with their games being discounted down to like $9 or $10. I mean, if it's going to be discounted that low, they want it to go directly through them. So Sony has been actively trying to remove the footprint that they have when it comes to physical games in stores and route everything through PSN. And that's just something that obviously that's better for them, not necessarily for you. Even if you're an all digital gamer, having that check and balance of economy and competition is definitely better, so you could potentially get some deals as well. So just keep that in mind. Where does this leave us for the future of what's happening? Well, Microsoft, they're going all digital. It definitely seems that way. There is so much evidence that everything is going all digital. The writing is on the wall when it comes to Microsoft. And it's very unfortunate because I think that Microsoft is a company that could do some great things with physical as well. But I just personally feel that when you get rid of that physical factor, that it definitely is going to affect things. Now, obviously Microsoft has Game Pass, so Game Pass is huge, but I was always a fan of buying physical games on the Xbox platform since the original Xbox, since the original one. So it's sad to see them go that way, but it does seem like Microsoft's consumers are more happy or content with Game Pass and all digital and not necessarily owning the games. So whatever path that takes them in the future, whatever path that happens because of that, is whatever's going to happen. Now, when it comes to Sony, I think that it's a bit split, right? When it comes to next generation or what they're going to do, they're going to try to force you into buying all digital, into getting a PlayStation 6 that's all digital at some point. What they did so aggressively, making two systems with the PlayStation 5 physical and the PlayStation 5 digital and making it $100 cheaper, shows that they are trying as hard as possible, even through manipulation of it, to get you to do all digital. So I do think that they're going to try to do more tactics just like that to say, you want to do that. I mean, I know that they made a system with the revision and then there's like a attachable disk drive slot. So they're trying to phase it out. They're trying to push it out, but they're just tiptoeing about it. So I do think that they're going to continue to do that. But remember, over half of all of the physical media sold when it comes to gaming in the US was on PlayStation systems. That's PS4, that's PlayStation 5. So clearly they can't completely be out of it. Now, if that was around maybe 20-30%, I think they could be even a bit more aggressive with trying to phase out physical, but it's around 40% plus, right? So they can't quite do it just yet. Now, Nintendo is going to be the lone survivor, I think, when it comes to the longest. Like, who is to hold out the longest with physical? And that's going to be Nintendo. Clearly, you look at the numbers here, over 50%. You look at the value of the games. You see people still actively buying a ton of physical Nintendo Switch games. This is something that I've been covering on this channel for years now at this point, especially with the Amazon sales and some of the retail sales tracking that I have with friends that work in distribution. And physical game sales are still really good on the Nintendo Switch. They're still really good for the secondhand market as well. So there's still a lot of passion, there's still a lot of money, and there's still a lot to look forward to when it comes to Nintendo in the physical market. And that's going to continue into the next generation. There are some people that are trying to state that Nintendo's going to have an all digital system, or they're going to go all digital pretty much very soon here. And no, I don't think so. Not based off of this right here. And I think that it's in Nintendo's best interest when it comes to sales, because their consumers are consistently buying physical games. They're consistently looking at physical media. We know that the footprint in terms of what Nintendo leaves for the physical legacy and what they do has been huge. Plus, there is literally millions of Nintendo Switch physical games that are out there that Nintendo can leverage, Nintendo can use in order to market new games, in order to get people into playing games anywhere. Because remember, you don't always have an internet connection everywhere that you are to download the game. So being able to buy a game region free, right, where you can buy a game in any country at any point, have your Nintendo Switch, pop it in there and play. Look at the success that they've had by getting rid of some of the limitations and allowing that play anywhere type of style with physical media. I know when I traveled overseas and I didn't always have internet connections everywhere, it was a godsend to have a system that just has physical everywhere. I can go buy a game right then and there and it works. I can go simply just play any game and not worry about having to connect to the internet and having to download the game or anything like that, or it doesn't work without an online connection like some games. So I think that's very important, and it's something that's going to continue being a driving factor for Nintendo going forward in the future. So with all of this, when it comes down to the death of physical media and people saying that it's not going to be good for physical media and it's going out of style or people aren't going to do it anymore, I would say, not so fast. I mean, we've seen this with vinyl. We've seen this with other mediums out there where people say it's done. People just download music all the time. And yes, that's true. But there still are people buying CDs. There still are people buying physical ways to play their music and enjoy them. And I think that's going to be the same thing with Nintendo. That's going to be the same thing with Sony. Maybe Microsoft is off the physical train at this point, but that's okay. It happens, and that's how their business is moving. But I think that when it comes to other things like with Nintendo and all that, no, not quite yet. But what are your thoughts on this, guys, when it comes to physical gaming, when it comes to what's happening here in the industry? How do you feel about all of this? Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG videos and more right here on screen. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.